2 p.m. So we will start the meeting. Let the record show that the directors here and present are Ms. Miller, Heigl, Mr. Fisher, Mr. Gannon, Dr. Garcia, Mr. Sahanowitz, did I get it? And Dr. Barksdale. Mr. Bruce has just arrived as well. My understanding is Mr. Yesterday will be here, but a little bit late. Do we have 4? Advise we have no one to speak. All right, the next item is the minutes. So I'll give everybody, if you haven't had a chance to read them beforehand. Motion to approve. Second from Dr. Barksdale. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item D is the preliminary 2026 operating budget.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Ad-hoc Budget Committee for their input, for meeting with us, and we can help explain the process. The process started back in late March, early April, where we sent our department budgets to our directors to see what their departmental needs were. Once we received all of them, we consolidated, Crystal consolidated that, and it was just under, it was 7.5% increase over last year's budget, which I thought was a little steep given the current climate, what the taxing units are also facing. We revised it and revised it again. So the final draft that we presented to the ad-hoc budget maybe was just a little over 5%. It was 5.5, which is still an increase. You know, we wanted to be very cognizant of the fact that we knew that this was not necessarily the time to go with the full amount. Having said that, I will turn it over to Crystal so she can go over the budget.
Our proposed budget for 2026 has the total expenditure, and I'm reading this from the budget information and highlights. It's in your binder under tab D, and it also gives you an illustration of how budget cycle works. Mr. Sanders went over that. And on the second page, we have our budget information highlights. So the proposed total expenditures are $29,743,477, representing an increase of $1,567,778. And that's a 5.56% over 2025. And we've highlighted the information in the summaries. The operating expense is going, thank you, is 14.07% of the total budget. Its increases include auto allowances, higher building maintenance costs. We've expanded our off-site parking. So that's a net projected change of $212,188. Our capital expenses are 0.67% of the total budget. Our net projected change is $8,000 for furniture replacements and aging assets and adding additional workstations. We have no debt services, so ours is at 0%. And this also correlates with the spreadsheet in the same on after the highlight, you can see the differences. So D is employee expenses. That is 63.81% of our total budget. And that is we're adding 8 new positions for our public interactions and operational demand. There are 6 clerical and 2 appraisals. We are adjusting our grid by 2%, raising the minimum hourly wage to $18.81. Our net projected personnel expense change is $1,026,547. Contract expense services is 8.80% of the total budget. And that encompasses our unfunded mandate for our election expenses. We also have litigation costs that have increased up to 30% of rise and higher outside counsel rates. Our net projected is actually a decrease of $80,300. And part of that is, we had reserved $1 million last year for our election line item, but we reallocated it to 750,000. Over that. Information system expenses is 2.81% of the total budget. That's for our software licensing agreement, equipment leases. Net projected change is $181,058. Project expenses are 5.77% of the total budget. That covers our field device and our CAMA, computer assisted mass appraiser software. That net projected change is $195,536. Other expenses of our total budget remains unchanged, and those are for item H. Item I, appraisal review board expenses is 4.03% of the total budget. That has been offset higher certified mail and postage costs, but we also did have a decrease in ARB legal services. So the net projected increase is 24,100. So our total proposed budget is 29,743,000. This translates to a cost of $41.09 real property parcel as shown in our chart below with the top districts. And on the next page, we have a historical budget and refund performance, and it'll show our decreased percentage from change from previous and 2026. And also our average percentage of budget refunded to entities is 3.9. Any questions?
What was that last sentence?
What is the average percentage of budget refunds to entities? It's on the historical budget and refund performance chart.
Right. And that's down 5.5%?
Well, that's the year over 25 to 26 is down. Our percentage.
The red
Previous.
indicates negative.
Yes, sir. That's for 2026. Historically, from 2019 to 2026, it's averaging a 3.9% refunded amount back to the entities.
It's representing a decrease, not a negative.
Not a negative.
Yeah.
Right.
2025 was 878, 2026 was 5.
I had a question on the operating expenses. I know that the balance has gone up over 9%. So how, I know, so you say new positions here are 89,600. So are these, so how is these positions coded? And are we spending auto allowance on anyone that's not going out into the field?
These 8 positions, no, ma'am. It's, it's 2 appraisers, those will be getting an auto allowance, and then the 6 clerical will not.
So the 6 clerical get an auto allowance?
They do not.
Okay. And so there's no one not in the field getting an auto allowance
That we're asking for need,
that is in the budget?
yes, I think we talked about this.
Yes, we do have some staff that are not, like our mail clerk who goes to the mail. She's not, goes into the field, but she does get out.
But no office employees that don't do outside.
Some of the directors do, yes, ma'am.
Directors do
Directors do.
Yes.
get an auto allowance.
So then how much of this 1.5, 1,056,000 are for directors who aren't in the field?
Directors that are not in the field. We have 6 directors.
And that's part of the
Yes.
part of the compensation package.
And then we have also, we have like our mail clerk that is also, she's not in the field. We have our attorneys that are not in the fields, but we go to mediations that also get an auto allowance.
And how many are those?
There's a total of 13 total,
And those are attorneys?
and directors
Oh, you mean the internal attorneys, not external?
and church,
Yes.
yes ma'am. And that is $115,200.
I believe you asked for a breakdown between non-appraisal and
Yeah,
appraisal.
what is it again?
115,200.
Okay, so 115, 200 is all the 13 attorneys plus the mail clerk plus the director.
Yes,
ma'am. Okay. And so this is something that's in the employee handbook, that this is something that's eligible for compensation for people that aren't necessarily in the field.
I don't know if it's necessarily in the handbook, I think it was just part of the compensation.
They do outside district business.
But that's not a mileage reimbursed, that's just a lump sum.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and remind me what it is?
The yearly amount?
Yeah,
150,000.
no, I mean that per person.
It's 9,600 annually. We do have some customer service supervisors. They get half, which is 3,800.
Okay, but this is not in the handbook.
No.
I'll double check, remember, it's called limited.
And have we considered this may be something, should we need to tighten our belt again? To be used to tighten our belt? But I guess I'm not understanding the lump sum. Is that typical of other governments? Does
I
the
believe
city,
so,
does
yeah.
the city or the ISD do lump sum? Yes. Okay. We do.
I know for sure, the city
The
does.
city.
Northside did. I
I
thought
assume the county does.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bruce.
Hi, a question. I have the historical, understand that, and the current, we just went over it. Absent an historical on the spreadsheet, you have the current percent of total. Do you have an opinion, if we had historical for each of these departments, where you only have the current year percent of total? Do you have an opinion as to which of these departments is the major driver, or historically, what's been the driver? In years 23 and 24 and 25 causing it to go up? And and can you have an opinion as to what might have caused the 5% reduction in the projection for 26? Where you think that is, or is it just spread evenly over everything?
Most of our expenses always come for our employee expenses, adding the positions. It always drives, that's would normally be the highest cost. Wouldn't you?
I agree. When you asked for that information, Mr. Bruce, on that email from 2023 to 2026, what the driving factors were for the $6 million increase. The employee expenses, Chris was absolutely right. That accounted for $3.3 million in round figures of the $6 million increase. The other highest one was the contract service expenses, which was just a little over $1 million. Individually, over that same period of time, the operating expenses was 600,000, capital expenses 42, information systems 242,000, project 330, and the appraisal review board from 2023 to 2026 went up $450,000. But the two main driving factors has always been employee expenses and the contract service.
Thank you. And so that which might have caused the 5% reduction for 2026, congratulations. These would be most likely tied to general operating expenses and employee expenses.
We're very cognizant of the fact that that's one of the reasons that we like to put the cost per parcel to show how we are with it amongst our contemporaries. And for the longest time, we were under $30 a parcel, which looked great on paper. But when you looked at the total was taking on staff, I mean, it was hard because we were wearing multiple hats, and we still do. And we're very grateful for the support that the board's given us to allow us to add more staff, because even at $41.09, yes, it's $11 per parcel higher than it was before. However, if you look at our contemporaries, we're still at the bottom end. So we're doing more with less, but yet at the same time, we're being very cognizant of the fact that our budget, we're staying within our budget.
Was there an area in the projection for 26 that you found to be troublesome to keep in line, or did it almost pretty much just work out the way you anticipated?
Well,
Like, in other words, did you struggle with any one particular item, like the software costs, for example? Was
The
that
software
like-
costs is always been, and I'll let you, I can have Scott talk to that. I mean, the biggest thing for us, again, has always been staff. I mean, we know that we are
Okay.
still short staffed.
Yeah, it's always.
Again, initially, I forgot what the total cost, but the total ask for was between the departments. Everybody wanted more staff. And we wanted to see what departments actually needed it and which could actually hold off. Like when we met with our directors individually after the fact, it was, this isn't no, this is a not right now type of situation. But it's always been employees, sir.
And that's one of the things historically, you have to balance between workload and also facility too. You know, when we look at where other districts and our contemporaries are with regard to staffing level, they're generally higher than we are. But at the same time, you know, we also have to understand that our facility is only so big. And we're doing a pretty good job of putting folks in spots throughout the building, but that's something that's constrained us too. So ultimately, over the next several years, we're gonna have to look to potentially address that. That's an area where we continue to have a potential issue in the future, but also the growth that we're experiencing in Bear County as parcel count and value growth continue. Even if nothing else, if just parcel count growth continues, we're gonna have people to adequately service the public. So that's something
There's
else.
some
that we have to
relative
look
data
at.
for you, parcel count versus budget per parcel from 2019 to now.
Yeah, that's gonna vary
You're a
pretty
data guy.
widely, yes, but it's not really a sticky statistic in that from a comparison
Oh, it's
point of
just-
view with our other, because obviously
Just numbers to look at.
yeah. it is
Numbers to
numbers to look
absorb.
at. But I still, you know, at $41.09, we are
Well below other.
Yeah.
$6 less than the next closest.
I would expect, no, that's good. I would expect that in Bear
So I
County.
think what it actually.
Our market and our economics,
Yeah.
it makes sense. I'm glad.
It's
That's where it needs to be. That's good. It's a
And
good
to
thing.
to Scott's point about the facilities, as you can see on our agenda, we also have, you know, we're gonna ask our board for an ad hoc building committee to start. It's a long process, and I don't want to, you know, get ahead of the game here, but that's something that we need to start addressing now, because I mean, in our line of work in the appraisal business, the cycles, the years go by so quickly that we can't keep maintaining the level of service that the property owners have expected of us at the same capacity with the resources that we have. And I'm not just talking about just the people, I'm talking about the building too. As you can see, I mean, we have designated parking spots for y'all. We have 135 parking slots assigned outside of the district for staff. I parked there myself. So we really got to a crossroads here where we'd have to look at another facility.
Well, I mean, staffing's gonna have to maintain or be commensurate with the rate of growth of the county.
Community.
So as long as continues to be a growing and thriving economic area, the needs for the appraisal district are going to continue to increase.
So I did see the latest growth data nationally, of course, it's for 2024, not 2025. But San Antonio was still number 3 on the list for net in migration. So while it has slowed down, it's still pretty robust by pretty much anyone else's standards. I think what this number speaks to is the efficiency of the staff. We are getting a lot of productivity out of our folks, and it's reflected in the disparity between us and our next highest comparable. So when you're $6 below, that's a significant difference.
Well, the other thing I think it's commendable is that you all went back and revised your initial kind of estimate of things. You're just trying to be a good steward of the finances. So try not to increase at a greater rate than we really need to at this point in time.
Thank you.
So I will say we did lower the budgeted item for the elections. The elections moving forward will be in November. As you recall, the issue we had with our last election was we were literally the only thing on the ballot, so we were paying for the whole thing. And well, we have never yet gotten our final bill for that election.
Mr.
We
Chair.
just got it
We
today.
got
Just got it today. I got to ask you that before the meeting and then I got.
Don't go asking for it.
We just got it today.
Okay,
The original estimate for both the May 4th election and the runoff, the original estimate was given to us at just under 1.7 million. The actual cost turned out to be a little over 1.2. So we have already paid $837,420 of that. The current balance that we will be paying shortly is the $381,346.08.
okay.
So we finally did get that today, as a matter of fact.
All right, I think that's good news because otherwise we were going to have to encumber funds
Correct.
and then we would have to explain that to the piece that you're retaining those funds to pay for the election, for which we have not yet been billed.
Right.
But that's all off the books, so that's good news.
So in the November election, that's November of 2026?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that means it'll be spread out over whoever else is on. the ballot.
Exactly.
So that's a midterm here. right?
That's a midterm.
So
So
then,
We're looking hopefully, for a significant decrease in our costs.
and did anything else change as far as the election goes, as far as having to do a runoff? There's a
So
runoff.
we haven't, the legislature is still in session. As of right now, it's status quo.
Okay,
There are a couple of different bills, one in the Senate, one in the House. They're very different. So it's hard to project what it's going to look like at the end. But that is something that we've talked about, and that is something that is in those bills, is that it would be a winner take all election. So,
so if it doesn't pass, it's status quo, but if it does, then it'll be.
yeah.
So if there are the. Okay, so this was total including the runoff,
Yes.
right?
The 1.2
So-
million.
So what's budgeted includes a runoff in case that law does not change.
Correct.
So we felt like $1 million was maybe a little too high, 750,000 seemed reasonable. Especially given that there's some uncertainty over exactly how that's. So. And I agree, we did have a conversation, as you know, you were there, about the fact that we need to start looking at the building. What options are out there? This is obviously a longer term issue, but we're starting to cram people in like sergeant in some parts of the building, and so we really need to start looking whether leasing, there's some part of the staff, we could lease space offsite to where we put it here now. Do we want to look at buying another building and selling this one? So.
So is the working at home from home, on the online, protests or things like that, is that relieved us any?
It has, sir. Like I said, that's what's actually given us the ability to be here as long as we have been. Because we have a flex hybrid schedule where people, rotate. And a lot of the people that are working from home have the ability to just log into a hearing, whether it's informal or formal hearing, and just automatically start taking care of property owners without actually having to be here in person. So it has alleviated a lot of that stress, if you will.
Being on the ad hoc committee, I thank you for looking down the road.
Thank you, sir.
Projecting what's to come, because that's needed. And it shows a lot of leadership and management that you do that. And I know that you all sometimes, like you were telling us, that you park across the street so that others may be able to park in the parking. And I thought it was very, cavalier of you all to say that, okay, if my employees got to do it, I got it. So it made a great impression.
Thank you, sir. And I have to give my directors credit too, because we all do the same thing. We all take turns. It's not just myself. Yes, I want to set the example, but they, they're right there with me. So it's like we have it broken down to be as fair and equal with everybody. So again, I tell people, I'm not going to ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself. And yes, it has been, especially right now with the weather, it's hot, but it is what it is. We're in Texas. But thank you for those words, sir. Appreciate it.
And so just to remind the board, if you look at the colorful diagram on the front of the page, the way the process works is we approve a proposed budget. That budget goes to the taxing entities. They have the ability to ask questions and weigh in. If there's any issues that have to be resolved, those are resolved. Once we've got a approval or at least lack of objection from any of the taxing entities, will come back. The actual budget will be passed in our meeting in September.
So. No. What's our fiscal year again? January 1 to September. Okay, you answered my question. Okay, sorry.
No worries. So I guess since we've had such high increases in the lawyer fees, that's for outside counsel.
The majority of it is, ma'am, and not just the attorneys, but also the mediators. We have been getting inundated with, lawsuit after lawsuit. And yes, ma'am, a lot of the attorney rates that have increased recently have not been changed in 5-10 years. So it was expected somewhat, but again, not just the attorneys, but also the mediators. So we've seen an increase across the board. And again, it's not just Bexar County. We've heard that from all our contemporaries too.
And how long are the contracts signed for mediators and outside?
The mediators don't, I don't know how that process happens, maybe the Charles is here. How do those mediators, I think that the attorneys are they picked, I don't know, the process?
Yes, they're picked by the attorneys from both sides will agree on a mediator to mediate the case. So we don't enter into trust in mediators, or sometimes they are ordered by the court.
Oh, okay. So, but there's like a standard mediator rate.
They're different, they fluctuate.
Yeah, they do fluctuate.
Yes, some of them are in-house here and locally, some of them, Dallas, Austin.
Unfortunately, the local rules require mediation for all cases set in jury trials. So we have numerous mediators that we're working with, and unfortunately, their rates are going up.
So as I understand it, there's a pool of individuals who are qualified to do this.
Correct.
And then the parties look at that pool, who's
Yeah,
available,
we
and come
want
to an agreement and move forward on that.
Exactly. And we've been fortunate to agree with the other side of who to use. So we haven't done the court and having the court issue of mediator, we not know anything about this area of law. So
And then we use more than one contract attorney for all these things.
Kurt, we have 3 outside firms that we use.
For the last several.
And those have contracts?
They have, oh, yes, we do have contracts.
And those are how long? A calendar year? Or-
They're annual.
Okay. And have we thought about, I'm sure there's a bid process for that?
The thing about these attorneys is there's actually a shortage of defense attorneys for appraisal districts in Texas. So even if the firms that we're working with are having a hard time finding attorneys to fill their positions. So we've been fortunate enough to find a couple of firms that do nothing but this area of law. But we have one local firm here, but it's very hard to find.
Oh, so the other 2 firms are not here.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then what is a 30% increase in lawsuits?
Just in the volume, of lawsuits that we've got, we used to average between 12 and 1,400 lawsuits a year. I believe last year was at 20.
We're about 16 to 1,700 lawsuits now every year.
16 to 17.
We have currently an active caseload of 1,945 open lawsuits, right? And we peak around 2,800.
Okay.
So you have some that are actually in litigation, but others where the research and whatnot's being done, prepared to go into litigation.
Correct. On average, right now, we currently have about 75 to 80 cases set for trial on a weekly basis.
Which
Some settle and some will get set for trial, so.
Which puts us in a predicament because then we have to go out for an outside expert report, which costs anywhere between 15 and 20,000. Charles had the brilliant idea of hiring our own in-house expert. And he's gotten inundated with requests. So now we're looking at adding another expert report writer to help him with that cost, because not just do they write the reports, they have to go field inspect the property. So it is just an ongoing process. And to Charles's point, there's very few ad valorem agencies on the outside that want to represent the districts throughout the state, because it's more advantageous to be on the other side. I mean, it's the system, we completely understand, but Charles does a great job of balancing what he can in-house and then, siphoning out the other cases between the 3. And it's been a struggle because 7-8 years ago, we used to have like 25 billion under litigation in value. Now we have 50, upwards of
50 to
55.
60 billion.
What was that number again?
50 to 60 billion.
in value, that's under litigation, that's under.
How many actually have a trial date set?
Well, currently we have 75 cases set for trial dates right now.
Is there a trial date that's been set?
Correct, on those 75 cases, yes, we have a trial list that,
So they might actually go to jury selection?
correct.
Interesting. It's a lot.
We actually currently have a case right now, we're in front of a jury trial that just completed.
Yes,
Mr. Harold?
I had a question.
Sure.
Not familiar with the appeal process. So these lawsuits, are they because by statute they're allowed to file them? Or are they because they just said, you know what? Fair appraisal district was not fair and you know, that's just in general.
I mean, by statute, they're allowed to either file a lawsuit, file an arbitration, or file a SOA. And unfortunately, I would say a large majority of our commercial properties, they will always file a lawsuit after they ever hear it. It's just
So
every year.
So would you say a large percentage of these lawsuits are commercial?
Correct. I would say about 95 to 98% of our lawsuits are all commercial property, but very few residential.
One of the things that we have here is that, you know, if we go to trial and we lose, the appraisal districts are on the hook for attorney's fees. Yet on the other side, in the rare instance that we may actually prevail in court, we're not entitled to any attorney's fees at all. So we have to do our best to manage that threat of exposure by trying to settle as many as we can. And it's always a situation of equal and uniform, meaning I don't want to talk about what I paid for my property. I could have paid $100 million. I want to look at these other properties that are similar to mine. Why are they valued so much less? And the way the statute's written, all you have to do is select a comparable set and make reasonable adjustments. Well, your comparables may be different from our comparables, and that's what ensues in litigation, and it's just an ongoing process. But to Charles's point, it's the majority is is commercial.
So is it by statute, we can't get attorney's fees?
Tax code.
Can you let us know, is it allowable to let us know if a trial date is set and we actually get to opening arguments? Whose court that would be and the date? I'd like to be there.
Sure. We will know the Friday before, which judge will be assigned.
I'll be on that list.
When was the last time you actually had to do that?
Today,
A trial? Really? You had a trial today?
yes,
Can you tell us, who the,
they cited for the property owner.
but can you tell us who the property owner was or
The property owner was
It's public
TMP
record.
Stone Oak multifamily
a Stone Oak multifamily?
apartment complex, correct?
Okay.
There was a reduction of $10 million for 2 tax years.
And what was their argument? If you could, in a nutshell?
Pretty much that they were overvalued, they weren't equal and uniform with their comparables that they
They
provided.
base any of it on income?
They provided their expert testimony, who was an MAI, and gave his opinion of value. We had our own MAI provide their opinion of value. What a jury did was they split the baby between both values. We were fortunate in this case, though, that they were not asking for attorney fees, which is very rare. Because if he had asked for attorney fees, we would be on the hook for their attorney fees right now.
So do we have a pattern of those that go to trial, you know, like, hey, this is what ended up at trial, and then the next year you kind of look at maybe what to settle with them for? I mean, is there any kind of pattern with that internally?
I mean, it depends on the attorney who's handling the case. Obviously, if we're $10-15 million apart, obviously it's gonna go to trial, or if there's some other issue, an appraisal issue, a legal issue that we may want to fight, then we'll take that to trial. But usually, like I said, we were able to resolve most of them in mediation. But it does happen when, so.
The last thing we ever want to do is go to trial. You know, the mindset is to go to trial when it's going to be something that changes precedent, you know, changes appraisal law. If it's just a matter of value, we try to negotiate and come to that type of agreement. And for the majority of the time we do, but there's times where we're so far apart that we just can't budge, because what happens is if we were to do that, then the other properties that are suing us will use that property as a comparison, a comparable, and say, wait a minute, you just lowered that one, now I wanna be compared to them. And it goes on and on and on. And by no means am I talking negatively about the property tax system. I'm just trying to explain that this is the process that we deal with. And I know that lawsuits have always been a big issue to our board. It's a big issue to us too. We try to do the best we can because we're tasked to appraise property at market value January 1st of every year with the current data. A lot of times we don't get data until after the fact, so we have to ask for it during discovery, which it would be useful during the valuation process. So again, you know, our staff here, Charles does an excellent job of triaging all our cases and our outside experts, outside counsel, again, they are some of the, I would dare say, some of the best ad valorem attorneys that we have. But even then, they're at a crossroads too, where they're being swamped in individual work, and we're sending it their way, you know, but I'm just hoping that we're able to hold on to some, because, you know, finding some to represent districts is getting pretty scarce.
How do the juries handle that data and all that input? Do they struggle with it, or do they seem to understand?
Well, they deliberated, today's case was about 6 days, and the jury deliberated in 40 minutes.
Really?
Easiest thing, split the baby. So, which,
There any-
because split the baby isn't favorable for the district
No.
ever.
They were back in 40 minutes?
Yes.
So most of them probably haven't protested.
So wasn't a lot of deliberating.
You guys, just curious, are these attorneys paid on per hour, hourly basis, or is there a flat fee?
Our attorneys are their attorneys.
Our
Our attorneys are hourly.
Yeah.
A lot of the other side attorneys will do contingency, so that's why they're.
Do you have any other questions about the budget? So we want to approve the proposed budget today.
Yes.
So
To send it to the taxing units.
So do we have?
Motion to approve.
Okay. So we have, Miller new, Hanowitz second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Good to go.
Nice piece of work.
Okay. The
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Board of Directors manual.
Yes, we had talked about at the last meeting about adding some language. I took the liberty of getting with Jennifer, Jennifer Rodriguez, our communication director, about putting something together to present to the board and have it ready for y'all. Because I think there was two matters at hand, is about in a situation where an inquiry comes between a member of the board, how to handle that. So that was the first section here, section that we want to add to amend the manual, 1.7, public communications. Comments, questions, or concerns received from a member of the public regarding the director will be forwarded to the officers of the board of directors for their review. Okay, and the second part was about the actual data or any data that's presented. And we wanted to ask the board, request from a member of the public regarding data provided by the district and used by a director in any public or social forum, both in print or verbally, will be forwarded to the RMO, the Records Management Officer, to be processed in accordance with the Public Information Act. I think that covers both.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And
Or-
remind me who the RMO is. It's just one.
Jessica, do like can too, but just for me to see.
And she's the one that also does the public information's requests,
Yes.
right? Okay,
Yes.
it's just one person,
She has an assistant now, but yeah, she predominantly does the whole thing.
one person.
Yes.
I was curious, on the first paragraph, I guess the, concern on the question regarding the director, in terms of director.
Board directors. Yes, sir.
But that was, so if there's something about a board director, then it would go to the whole board.
It would go to the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary to review and get with the actual director of the board.
Has that happened in the past?
To my knowledge, no, it was very seldom. We just had it recently, and that's why we wanted clarification, and we put it on the board manual how to move, forward.
So I would kind of recommend what Leslie's recommending. Sorry, Leslie, I have to use your first name. Is maybe just clarify regarding a director of the board.
Okay.
And then just to the officers, however Leslie says to say chair,
It's
vice.
a member of the board of directors.
Perfect.
I was confused.
Yeah, because I understand you have directors of departments, we have boards of directors, so I would say board member.
Got it.
Yeah, it's just, this is out of context for the policies for the board of directors. That's why it's redundant if we put it in there. So you're just seeing one part of the board of directors policies. So
It's part of
it's
the board
part
manual.
of a manual that's for the board of directors. So I think it's redundant, but it doesn't hurt anything either. So.
Whatever y'all want to do.
I would just say.
Okay.
All right. Do you have any more questions or discussion?
No, thank you for adding that.
Absolutely. So just for clarification, sir, you wanted to say comments, questions, and concerns received from a member of the public regarding members of the board or members of the board?
Yes.
Okay. Members of the board.
Yeah. So let the record reflect that Mr. Ures stated that he wanted. So any other questions? With that amendment, do we have a motion? So moved by Dr. Garcia, second by Dr. Barksdale. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Ad hoc building committee.
Mr. Chair, like I said, we had talked about it during the ad hoc budget committee meeting about putting together an ad hoc building committee in the hopes of starting the discussions about possibly, looking for another facility in the near future. It's a lengthy process. Section 6051 of the tax code requires a board of the director to send a resolution of the taxing units seeking their approval. Once we send out once the board sends out a resolution, they have 30 days to reply to that resolution. But the way it's currently written, if we don't hear back from the taxing units, it's treated as a disapproval. There's current language, there's currently a bill that's been filed by Senator Zaffarini, who wants to change the language that if we don't hear back from a taxing unit, it's automatically approved. So that would, we'll find out when the legislature ends, but that would be a lot more helpful in procuring a property, in the future. But yes, right now, we'd like to see if the board would be able to put an ad hoc building committee together.
I'll volunteer for that.
I volunteer, absolutely.
I'd like to be a part of that as well. We can have up to 4 members on an ad hoc committee. So Dr.
Mr.
Barksdale.
Bruce, Mr. Gannon, and Dr. Barksdale?
Yes.
And about our president, I suppose you'd be on.
Yeah, I'll be on.
Along the lines, I'd like to inform the board, I would like to, in the very near future, propose to the board, ask permission to change the name of Bear Appraisal District to Bear Central Appraisal District. One of the things that we get a lot is the correlation that we are part of the county and we are not. We are a subdivision of the state. There are 79 other districts that have central in their title. Aside from Tarrant, all the other large metros have that. So along with the new building, that's something that I would like to bring to the board for their approval in the very, very near future. We've already put together a work group, if you would, as far as the potential cost. Harris Harris Central Appraisal District was one of the last appraisal districts that actually changed the name. And their cost to completely change from, because they were Harris County to Harris Central, was less than 40,000. I don't know if we'll be that fortunate, but we're looking into that right now. I mean, the only big ticket item that I see would be the signage in the front. Everything else is the same. Our logo shirts would be the same. We can use all our letterhead up until we finish it. But I just want to let the board know that that will be something that I will be presenting to the board in the very near future.
So Harris has changed it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I just have a question. What's the real need and have you tested that real?
The real need?
Yeah.
Just for clear separation, that's always been the misconception about, the appraisal district is that we are part of the county. That, if you look at the news reports I came out on KSAT, county appraiser, encourages, we're not part of the counties. And just to have that separation and that better understanding, education for the public, I think it'd go a long way.
So when the positions, elected positions were put in, one of the back and forths we had with the elections administrator, she originally gave us a much slower estimate on the election because she felt that we would be on the county ballot,
Okay.
which we were not able to. And I actually at that point said, I think we need to research that because I don't think that's right. So it was 500,000 was the original estimate. And then she called back and said, well, it turns out you're right, it's 1.8 million. So big difference there. So there is confusion even within intergovernmental relations as to whether we are a county agency or a state agency.
Yeah, I just like, you mentioned the television example. I don't think those people really know the difference. Yeah, so they just make up the title and they slap it on there. So I just wonder whether changing it will confuse the people or the property owners. That's.
Mr. Eurostate.
So I know, the county had proposed changing the name before to Alamo Appraisal District. And that would really differentiate it, but we were told at the time there could not be any changes made to it. I don't, have you all researched the legal part of that?
I don't remember Alamo. I remember, there was a certain commissioner who wanted to change us to the,
The number.
it was the number 15 appraisal district, because if a comptroller's website, Bear is the 15th county. So that would have been more confusing. But
Yeah.
I don't remember any legalities as far as changing the name.
Yeah, trust me, I had a lot of conversation with different, well, especially in that one commissioner in particular. And I mean, if we are going to change it, I mean, we really want to create that discernment between us and them. I would say Alamo Appraisal District would be more appropriate, but we can come back later with that. But I just want to throw that out there because, again, we were told it couldn't be changed legally. So, I would suggest you check into that.
I'll check into that.
All the appraisal districts are after a county name. Alamo is not a county.
I understand.
So I think that's not a good idea.
Well, so why don't the staff do a little bit more research and
Sure,
give us a
absolutely.
report on what you found at the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Or maybe after Harris, when did Harris change it?
I believe it was a year and a half ago, 2
So
years.
maybe talk to Harris and say, hey, did this help, what were some of the impacts of it? Or any other county that's,
Definitely.
I don't know if any other counties changed it.
Dallas Central, Travis Central, Harris Central, El Paso, there's 79.
So all the big ones have changed.
Yes, except for Tarrant. Tarrant is probably the only one where that is not. But I'll bring all that information to the board.
Thank you. All right, we do want to have a closed session.
Yes.
So, at 2:47, we will go into a executive session. We are reconvening at 3:18 p.m. All right. We are going back into open session. There are no action items that came out of the executive session that need to be addressed. And so therefore, we will move on to reports. And we'll start with the chief appraiser's report.
Okay, chief appraiser report. So the appraisal records. April and May are very busy months for us, so I just want to do a quick recap. In April, we sent out approximately 394,000 appraisal notices. We had a April 15th rendition deadline and an April 30th exhibition deadline. Carrying over into May, we published our protest procedures as required to the various local media. We turned over our appraisal records to the appraisal review board. We do plan on sending out a second mailing of appraisal notices mid next week. We anticipate that to be about 17,000 additional properties, most of which are business personal property accounts that had the later April 15th deadline. The big topic right now is protest deadline coming this Thursday, May 15th. To date, we have received just over 86,000 protests. 51% of those protests are residential online protests. 23% are residential office protests, and 16% are residential file only protests. The remaining 10% is mostly commercial and a very small percentage of business personal property at this time. So all of our efforts are being focused on the appraisal deadline coming this Thursday. And then we will get into our full informal conferences and appraisal review board periods, starting at the end of the month.
Remind us how many total protests that we received last year?
185,000 last year total,
12,000 and it's 80,000 now.
right now. We expect 87,000 right now as of today. We do expect that to go up significantly by the time we process everything after the deadline.
Okay,
And how much was online last year, percentage wise?
We're getting a larger response this year to our online, as far as final numbers, I don't have that for you, but we are seeing an increase in our online.
That's because of the help box.
Possibly. And that's the appraisal record reports. If you have any questions?
any questions? Okay.
You guys should be done by like June.
Entering them.
Yes,
This, not familiar with this process, so you stagger the notices that's what you do.
We send out most of the notices in our first round. We are required by law to send out appraisal notices to homesteads first.
Okay.
By April 1st or soon thereafter as practicable, and then all other property by May 1st or soon thereafter as practicable. But our goal is to send out as much as we can in the initial notice run, which we did, and that is our largest.
Thank you.
all right. Community engagement,
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. You will see in your tab for the community engagement report, our updated statistics for April. As anticipated, our phone calls have grown numerously, a 10% increase from the March numbers, as has our in-person activity. Community engagement events went from 6 in March to 19 in April, and our chatbot is being visited quite as well. If you turn to the next page, I've put together a map of the county that highlights the areas that we have visited in person so far. So this is just for the month of April. This is not only our City of San Antonio workshops, but also mortgage lending firms that we've met with, title companies that we've met with, and independent organizations such as Vet Serving Veterans, Frost Bank Expo, the NAACP. There are some virtual events there as well. You'll see that 3 of them were specifically led in Spanish. And those were our in-house business personal property rendition seminars, as well as some of those led by the city. And then the last portion of my report, if you turn to the next page, is just a detailed list of those events that we've participated in. It highlights who the program sponsor was, who from our staff attended, because we like to get staff involved. It's an all-in teamwork effort. It shows what topics we covered, how many people or households were at each event. And we do bring home documents with us, so that way the homeowners don't have to come visit us. And so that will show you how many documents we collected at each place that we were at as well. And that is the extent of my report, unless anybody has any questions.
I don't have a question, but could you please tell the board, we typically do English and Spanish, and we actually have, the city had one.
That is gonna be in the May
Oh, it's gonna
listing,
be in the May.
but it's a city, one of the city workshops, in addition to having an English presentation, also had Vietnamese and Arabic. And the city also has been great with having live translations. So regardless of what the presentation is being conducted in, they have real-time translations going on.
It's been really great working with the city of San Antonio. They get so much more people to go out there to meet. But it has been nothing but a pleasant.
And it also gets us in contact. We work with the tax office directly. We're typically located right next to one another. So that's a tax office question. It's easier than,
Right.
let me give you a number to call. Let's just go right there. Mexican American Unity Council is always there. Bexar County Veteran Services, and also the San Antonio Community Resources Department. So there's a lot of organizations that participate in these events.
Do you get a good turnout from
We,
the,
closer, from, no, I'm sorry, from the senior citizens?
just from citizens?
From citizens in general, absolutely. The earlier ones, it's typically about a 40 person crowd, but the one last night was 203 people.
Oh, that's great.
So the closer we get to deadline, the more people remember that they need to
How are
attend.
how are they getting the news of the meeting awards?
For the city workshops, they've got a much larger marketing budget, so they do mail outs to the owners in near the vicinity of where the event's gonna be held. They also have done radio spots this year, they've done TV spots, they've done print ads. And then all of the organizations that participate are able to share on social media as well. So it's a collaborative effort.
I like that you have the documents somebody collected.
Oh, yes, that's when, and we started doing that with these city workshops about 3 years ago. It worked so well, we now incorporate it into everything we participate in. If we can bring something back to help the homeowner out, that way we sure will.
Save them a trip.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's exactly what we tell them.
Along those lines, I know that it's been a long meeting, but I mean, if you all have a minute or two, we have the ARB area set up with tables and we have 4. It's a pretty neat operation. We have 4 copiers, more property owners that are coming in that haven't filled out forms yet. We have desks set up. We have a highlighted protest form where we just give them a quick guide as far as what to fill out. That we make them a copy, we stamp it. So, I mean, it's been a really good process. One of the things one of my favorite compliments that I've heard recently is like, I can't believe y'all have no business doing government work as efficient and as quickly as you guys are doing it. We really take a lot of pride in that because again, we understand the property owner's concerns, and we do our best. And like I said, working with the city, working with the tax office has been nothing but beneficial as far as putting ourselves out there on what we do.
Yeah, I got that compliment from a taxpayer that came in today.
Right.
Was that she got a quick copy and that it was stamped copy.
Yeah.
Now she forgot to do the evidence packet.
Yeah.
Which I reminded her, and she had to stay.
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't wanna leave.
Yeah, we
You
do.
wanna come back.
When they turn in those forms, if they haven't checked it and they're already gone, we'll just check it for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And last but not least, the appraisal review board, Mr. George.
Oh, I'm standing between you and the door, so I'll be very, very good. What we've been doing during the off season concentrated on completing the training and rehashing all of our training. And then we lead the comptrollers, state training, share training, full panel training, and specialized training in commercial and agriculture. The 27th of this month, as you all probably know, we'll be doing late hearings on the 27th and 28th. We have approximately 425 late hearings to complete. And then on the 29th, we'll start the regular season. That's about all I got, sir.
So just to clarify, the 425 was for tax year 2024
And prior, yes, ma'am.
and prior. Okay. And that's for the ARB.
Correct.
Okay, and is that about average where you're doing the last year's this year?
It is. There'll probably be a couple that hold over till August, because every 3 months we do late hearings.
Every 3 months?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we'll have a couple that will be held up until August, but not very many. Thank you.
All right. Any last minute questions? Comments? Then the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion so moved.
Move, second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?